Hey there, it's Justin Heminger with Apex Realty Group at Real Broker here in Fairbanks, and today we're going to be reviewing the 3 different values that you're likely to experience during a real estate transaction. They are very different from each other, so let's get into it. Okay, the first value that we're going to talk about is the assessed value. This one's tough. So every year around the first part of the year, the Fairbanks North Star Borough sends out a mailer. It's a little notice that shows you kind of what your property is going to be assessed at. That notice typically creates a little bit of controversy for folks because the majority of the time you're not going to see a decrease in what you're paying in taxes. Sometimes you do, but most of the time you're going to see an increase in your assessed value. It could mean that your property is worth a little bit more, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that. So how do they arrive at this value? The assessor's office, their job is to go out and do visual inspections of property. What they do during this visual inspection is they'll go out and do an exterior view of the property. Now, they're not going to come look through your windows. They're not going to come and storm your property, beat down your door and try to get into your house. You might see a little flyer that is on your doorknob saying that the assessing office had been by. That would be about it. You might see a change in your assessed value after the fact. And what they're going to be looking for are any changes to the layout of your lot. Now, one thing to keep in mind when it comes to your assessed value is that the borough does offer property tax exemptions. And if you've got questions about the property tax exemptions, take a look at our video about the top 5 property tax exemptions that you might qualify for. And if you do, you should definitely follow up on them because it could absolutely save you a ton of money every year. All right, the next value that we're going to review is the appraised value. So the appraisal is typically ordered, especially when it comes to a real estate transaction, is typically ordered by a lender. Your lender or your mortgage broker will need an appraisal in order to essentially qualify the market value. That's the way that I remember. What they want to do is be sure, kind of on behalf of the lender, on behalf of the buyer, that they are only lending as much as they absolutely need to. What they want to do is avoid any gigantic market crashes like the one that happened back in 2008. And like I said, only lend as much as they need to. What they want to do is not overextend buyers unnecessarily. An example of this, what they don't want to do is go out and lend $1 million on a $200,000 property, then have a buyer that is in a situation in which they have to pay a mortgage on $1 million property that is only worth $200,000, that if they should be foreclosed upon, the bank would have to then try to sell for over $1 million at a loss. So that's kind of the bank's motivation to get an appraisal. Something to consider is that the appraisal or the appraised value isn't necessarily going to be at the market value 100% of the time. We hope that it is, especially during a real estate transaction. We hope that it either meets or exceeds the market value, but sometimes it can come underneath the market value. And in those times, I hope you've got a really good realtor to help you negotiate through that process, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. Knowing how to negotiate through a low appraisal is really important. When it comes to appraised values, it's important to know how they arrive at that appraised value. What the appraiser is going to be looking for are homes that match the subject property in terms of age, fit and finish, condition, location, square footage. They want to get to as close to that subject property as they can, and as many homes as they can find that match that subject property. Sometimes this is really easy, but sometimes this is really, really hard, especially when it comes to location. Fairbanks is a very small place, so sometimes appraisers have to get a little bit creative when it comes to looking at different locations, but they do the best that they can. Oh, before I forget, drop a comment below if you'd like a copy of our relocation guide. All right, the market value. When it comes to understanding the market value, it is typically what a buyer is willing to buy a home for. So if we've got a home that is on the market for $350,000 and it's been on the market for 180 days, chances are the proposed market value of $350,000 is too high. So a buyer is not willing to pay $350,000 for that home. The market value is probably a little bit lower. Now, let's say we get under contract with a buyer on that home at $325,000. In theory, the market would have agreed, because we have a buyer and a seller that have agreed on paper to purchase that home for $325,000. Now it's after we've come under contract at $325,000, we would have to go through the process of getting an appraisal and shoring up that appraised value to move forward on that transaction. But the market value has a lot of other things to take into account to be sure that the buyer is able to qualify and close on that loan for that market value, such as the economy, the interest rates, the property taxes, i.e. the assessed value. That's why we saved the market value for last, because it kind of encapsulates all of the other two in order to quantify and qualify what the market value is. So until we've understood what the assessed value and the appraised value really are, we can't really understand what the market value is. Now the tough thing is, as I said before, the market value can be higher than the assessed value. The market value can be higher than the appraised value. The market value can also be lower than the appraised value, and the market value can be lower than the assessed value. It's kind of like a dartboard sometimes, and hitting that target. You never know where it's going to end up. And every case is home specific and situation specific. So if you ever have a question about, your market value or your assessed value or an appraised value, even for that matter, you can always give us a call, 907-885-0316. Thank you so much. Have a great day.